Have you ever worked in an environment where there was a lot of verbal altercations, disagreement, and a lack of accountability? Did someone at your employer, such as another coworker, a subordinate, or even your boss, treat you in an immoral way? When you brought this to human resources or your boss, did they do nothing? In today's Supply Chain Pro video, we review the importance of the Documented Notes program as it relates to immoral or policy-breaking conduct at the workplace. The Documented Notes program is designed to provide a structure of historical evidence so that in the event of an investigation into someone's conduct, all of the important notes are easily available so you can provide the investigator with a clear understanding of the reality of what happened without them needing to have been there. For more information on the investigation process at a company, see the video link in the description below. I want you to think about human resources. It is very unlikely that they understand everything that occurs in the area that you work. They are oftentimes office-centered and may not even report to your facility. If you are expecting action from human resources on a policy infraction, you have to be able to communicate to them in a way that they can understand the reality of what is occurring as they sit in their office in the corner of the building, or possibly from 1,000 miles away at their remote workstation. The Documented Notes program is composed of the date, the employee who the note is regarding, a summary topic, and a description of the note. It is advised to be as detailed as possible when filling out the description portion of a note in an attempt to capture all of the relevant information. This note can protect you in the future or allow you to prove a point as evidence of someone's conduct. The remaining portion of this video will be constructing 3 examples of the Documented Notes program, how it works, and how it can be used in your favor during situations that may not always be clear and obvious. All companies have policies that establish and define a base set of rules that employees within the company must adhere to. These company policies can tell us how to do a job, our limitations at the job, or define rules for proper and improper conduct. In the event that a policy is broken, the company can administer discipline or corrective action against the breaker of the policy. In order to do this, there needs to be clear and obvious evidence that the policy was broken before discipline or corrective action can be administered to the offender. When it comes to our actions, we will use time theft as an example action based on a policy infraction. These are very easy to conclude with evidence. An employee was recording their time on the job when they were not physically working. This is the definition of time theft and can be very easily proven using objective evidence of them not being present. Social interactions are oftentimes very subjective and can fall on a spectrum from innocent to fine to borderline to offensive and finally illegal. Social interactions can be difficult to objectively read on the spectrum because all people have different levels of interpretation, patience, and life experiences. It may be easier to identify a hostile work environment policy infraction when an employee is cursing out their manager. It may be more difficult to determine a hostile work environment when that employee softens their language to include general derogatory words instead of using curse words. An example of this might be an employee going off on a rant to another coworker about their manager having the face that looks the same as a beaver's backside, by going into great descriptive detail explaining the perceived similarities. Where does this beaver backside face statement fall on the social spectrum? We can agree that it's definitely not nice and it's not naive. However, this is not illegal, or it might not be objectively hostile either. It is definitely mean, it's definitely not nice, and it's probably just a crude joke. But if this is the only piece of evidence in this employee's file, it is not a policy infraction to hurt someone's feelings. This would open up large discussion on company politics and lead to further problems if employees could be disciplined every time someone was offended. There is not enough solid evidence in this example for the company to take action on a single beaver backside analogy comment from the employee. They could theoretically talk about being nice, but there's no ability to hold this employee accountable with this singular piece of evidence. I have seen all sorts of employees get upset at this fact that they were spoken to rudely once and expect management to discipline another employee for one interaction, and this is very unlikely to gain any disciplinary traction. The power in the Documented Note program is obtained by collecting objective data over time. While the conduct of the employee is not recommended and discouraged by the company management, the correct course of action will be to document what the employee said and also document a follow-up conversation with the employee telling them that their conduct was not appropriate or acceptable. And yes, this employee is likely going to play politics, deflect ownership, and is unlikely to take accountability or responsibility for what they said. You have documented their actions, and you have documented their conversation that their conduct was not okay. Fast forward a month, and this employee has continued their disrespectful behavior and words towards their manager. After 3 or 4 documented note occurrences of the same disrespectful and unprofessional conduct towards their manager, you have more evidence of this borderline conduct from the employee, and you have multiple instances where you are telling them that they are out of line and the incorrect behavior is still occurring. It is at this point that you can take disciplinary or corrective action because the employee is not changing their incorrect behavior despite your documented conversations notifying them of their unapproved conduct. Using another real example from my Supply Chain Pro career, we had a routine housekeeping sweeping task that needed to be completed once per week. This assignment was easy on an employee's body and mind, and it was highly desired to be assigned by the employees each week. I, as the department supervisor, attempted to be fair by training and rotating all of my department employees into this sweeping task. Normally, employees would take 5 to 10 minutes to prepare their tools, and then they spend an hour or so performing the sweeping task. One day, I assigned an employee, who we will refer to as Kyle in this video, to the sweeping task. After 30 minutes or so, I noticed I didn't see Kyle working on the sweeping task, and I went over to the supplies area to find him continuing to prepare his tools. Normally, this preparation takes approximately 5 and no longer than 10 minutes. However, Kyle was taking an excessive amount of time on this preparation portion of the task. I spoke with Kyle regarding this. I gave him clear instructions on the 5 to 10 minute prep time, and I asked him if it was reasonable to take 30 minutes to set up, and he told me that it was. And I pushed Kyle to start the task at the conclusion of our conversation, and I returned to my documented notes to log the specifics of this interaction. 2 months later, I continued to be fair and rotate my employees into this desired weekly task, and Kyle did the same thing this time that he did before, taking longer than 20 minutes to prepare his tools for the sweeping task. I again approached him after 20 minutes of preparation, and I asked him what was going on. He responded he was getting prepped for his sweeping task, and I again provided instructions and pushed him to start as his tools were sufficiently ready. For a second time, I logged what Kyle was doing, what he said, and the instructions that I gave him in my documented notes file. I made a comment in the file notating that it was my conclusion that Kyle was taking advantage of the untimed sweeping task preparation time, and he could not be trusted to perform this duty unsupervised in the future. From this point on, I stopped assigning Kyle to this sweeping task, as I had reached the conclusion he could not be trusted to work independently. After some time, Kyle was picking up on the fact that he was never assigned to this favorable task anymore, and he demanded fairness from his supervisor. Kyle placed a human resources grievance for favoritism and unfair discrimination by his supervisor towards him at the workplace, and he cited this lack of easy assignment as a clear and obvious example of discrimination. During the human resources investigation, I provided my documented notes with the conversations that I had with Kyle, and the human resources investigator could clearly see and understand why Kyle was not being assigned this task, because in the past, the evidence showed that he abused this assignment. Human resources denied or found Kyle's grievance unsubstantiated, and my reputation with human resources remained intact. Finally, I would like to encourage all employees to take their own notes when something bad happens to them on the job. Simply reporting that something happened may or may not allow for action to be taken by the company. If you have good notes regarding who said what, when, and where, this will help management or human resources piece together your report, and they are more likely to take action. If you report that Manny always does the same thing to me and I'm sick of it, that is very vague and is unlikely to be able to have action taken on it. If you report specific dates and specific times that Manny specifically said this specific thing, which I found rude or unacceptable, management can take that data and use it in an investigation to potentially address Manny's behavior. I would like to encourage all employees that feel that their boss or manager is mistreating them in any inappropriate way to utilize a documented notes type of program, keeping good notes so that they can provide evidence and specifics of their boss's conduct to a higher authority in the event that you feel you should request opening an investigation. If you have a story where you were mistreated and you reported it, but the company did nothing, comment it down below. If you found value in the content of this video, like and subscribe to the channel. This is your Supply Chain Pro, out.